Welcome. You're here because you want to find out more about tax-free savings account versus an Rrsp. Well, I'm Linda Levesque, and I have a co-host, Dan Farron, to answer questions. Now, because this is being recorded, we're not going to actually have any of your questions on today. But just know, at any point in time, you can go to Levesque Wealth Planning, click on our calendar, and you can book an appointment to talk to me and or Dan together and find out everything that you didn't get out of this presentation. Because let me tell you, you're in for a few surprises. So let's get started. So what we're going to be covering today is what a tax-free savings account is, what a registered retirement savings plan isn't, your eligible investments, and then any questions and answers. And as I said, because we're recording this particular presentation, you won't be able to ask questions today, but you can actually book an appointment at any point and talk to us and get all of your questions answered. So the tax-free savings account. Many of you will already know that it started in 2009. This was a gift that our federal government gave us. And let me tell you, it was a long time coming because things of this nature, they had similar things going on in other countries in the world. We had our Rrsps, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. So in order to have a tax-free savings account, you must be at least 18 years or older. You must be a resident of Canada, and currently our annual contribution room is $6,000. Now, the contribution room accumulates from year to year. So if you were at least 18 in 2009 and you had not contributed, and now you've inherited some money, won the lottery, got a job, and you want to put money away, you can put up to $75,500. And in a few months, you'll be able to add another $6,000. Now, when this first started, people thought, oh, what's the big deal? It's not that much money. Who cares? Well, now, if you've been in your plan since 2009, like I have, your plan could be having quite a bit of money. Depending on how you invested, conservatively, it might be still under 100,000, or it can be way in excess of $100,000 if you were a little bit more aggressive with your investments. And remember, anything over the contribution limit is all tax-free. That is a gift. So you get contribution room whether you're working or not, unlike an Rrsp, and we'll get to that later. Contributions are not tax deductible, meaning you could get the money from anywhere, but if you're saving money from your employment or your pensions, that money you've already paid tax on. So when you contribute to your tax-free savings, you've already paid taxes initially on the money. But remember, it can grow in a tax-free environment forever. You can take withdrawals out at any point in time to supplement your retirement, put as a down payment on a house, take a trip around the world, whatever your heart desires, and it's tax-free. But the fantastic news is literally, if you come into some more money, you can put back all the money you took out. That means any contributions you've already made and all the money that it made, whether it's interest, capital gains, dividends, whatever growth you took out, if you wait till the following year, you can put it all back. Now, if you don't have the money right away, no problem. It's going to be there when you're ready. If you were planning to make a change or you were taking some money out, a lot of times it's great because you know that you're going to be having money early in the new year. Take it out in December. Then it's hardly actually been out at all, and you get to put everything back in January. Now, this is an interesting thing that I think a lot of people don't know. Did you know that you can actually do a direct transfer from one spouse to another on a marital breakdown? Now, what this means is that you on the receiving end, that's going to get double the room forever. So that amount of money that you now have, say you've maxed out up until this point, and you had $75,500 in contributions plus any other gains or interest, and you have a marital breakdown where your spouse must transfer all of their particular tax-free savings to you, now you've got $151,000. Wow. Plus all the gains, all the income, everything, the growth. I mean, that's like amazing. Now, here's the bad news that a lot of people don't realize. If your spouse had to transfer to you, they've actually lost their room forever. So if you're one of the spouses that has to pay out that amount of money on a marital breakdown, I would recommend you cash out your tax-free and give your partner all the money while you get to leave the room to recontribute in the following year or later. Because if it's a rollover, you've lost that room forever. And I know a lot of people wouldn't know that rule and they would just think, it's easy, and it gets rolled over. Don't do that to yourself. It's not worth it. But if you're on the receiving end, take it, because it's a gift that you now have double the room from anybody else you know. You can use your tax-free savings for anything. In a lot of cases, what people will do is consider that as part of their emergency fund. Because you know everybody needs an emergency fund, and that should be, well, in the old days, it was six months to a year's worth of money in case something happened to you. But given that we've just not even finished going through COVID, you might want to have an emergency fund that has a minimum of 2 years of basic living expenses, just in case something happens and you lose your job. So tax-free savings, what is it? It is the gift that our government gives us for us to shelter money for the rest of our life. You can accumulate this money, and if you don't spend it in your lifetime, it's going to roll over to your beneficiaries or successor holder, your partner, tax-free when you pass away. Well, that means that you already bypass probate right there. That's part of the estate taxes that the government will not get their hands on. It belongs to your beneficiaries or successor holder. So what an RRSP? What it isn't? Well, it's certainly not a gift from the government. Why we did it in the first place is because where else could we put some money away and defer our taxes? But did you hear what I said? Defer your taxes? Really? You're not paying them now, but you're going to be paying them some point in the future. That means that you may be paying even more back later on. And for most people that are forced to withdraw, when they're 71, they have to convert their savings plan to an income fund. They have to start drawing money from it when they're 72 years old. You may not need the money. And all of a sudden now, your money coming in from the registered savings plan, the income fund, is now additional taxable income. And you know what that means? If you were in, say, already a 40% tax bracket, you might be bumped into a 45 or closer to a 50% tax bracket, depending on how much money you have in your registered plan, because the government will tell you the minimum you must take out. Now, you could always take out any amount you wanted out of your income fund or your registered savings plan, but there's a minimum you must take out when you're 72 years old. So you really won't want to use this for emergencies. It can be used, but it shouldn't be used. And of course, if you're using your RSP for supplementing your retirement, there is a tax consequence, and you better be aware of it. So this could also negatively impact the estate when there's no spouse. All of a sudden now you're widowed or widowered, and all of a sudden now your estate's going to get the money. But it also means the government looks as if you cashed out your plan the day before you passed, and it becomes income in the year that you die. Wow. For some people, that can bring them close to a whopping almost 54% in taxes. And we haven't even started with the rest of the stuff that's going through the estate. You might say probate, but you're not going to avoid having the government as part of your beneficiary to this registered money. So there is a big negative impact to the estate. So as I said, when you look at the comparison, the tax-free savings, you have to be 18 years or older to open it up. With an RSP, if you're a child actor or model or have a paper route and you want to have income that you're declaring, you can start building up RSP room when you're a youngster. But for the tax-free, you must be at least 18. Contributions in a tax-free savings can be made up until the year of death. But the last time you're allowed to make a contribution for an RSP is the year you turn 71. But that is based on previous years of earned income. If you don't have earned income, you may have had to stop contributing maybe when you were 55 or 60 when you retired, because your pensionable income is not going to give you RSP room to defer these taxes further. You don't have to have an income. You could just have great parents that give you a big allowance and you're over 18 and you want to put it all into a tax-free savings. But RSPs, you definitely have to have some kind of employment income, royalties, rental income, something that is considered income for tax purposes to make the room for the RSP. If you don't have that kind of income, too bad. You can't defer any more money. The maximum annual contributions are $6,000. It started off at $5,000 and went to $5,500, and for 1 year we had it at $10,000, and now the government has it right now at $6,000. It's subject to change depending on inflation. Remember, the contributions aren't tax deductible, but all the growth and income is tax-free forever. And that's where the name comes in, tax-free savings account, where the RSP, the contributions are a tax deduction, but it's only a tax deferral at that point in time. Well, what that also means to you, if your income is low, just because you have room to put money into your registered retirement savings plan, should you or should you not? When we didn't have tax-free savings prior to 2009, the only place you could really save to get a little bit of a tax break was the registered retirement savings plan. And so that's what people did. That's why a lot of parents will say to their children, their adult children, when they start working, you've built up this tax-free or this RSP contribution room. If you want to save taxes, you should put money into your registered retirement savings plan. Because, you know, at some point, we're all going to retire and we're going to need this extra money. The thing that you don't understand is that if your adult children are making low income, they may not benefit. And if they do benefit from a tax deferral, it may be in a very small way compared to their higher earning years. That's important for you now to say to your children, you've got options here. When we were saving money, when we were younger, we didn't have options. Now that you do, because a lot of young adult children won't have a lot of money to do both. And if they do, great. It's good to do, especially if they're making the big bucks and they're still young. Get them to do both, the tax-free, and then they can start saving in the Rrsp. But when you're talking about your history and your plans and why you put so much money into the Rrsp, what little that you could, because, you know, people that were raising families didn't have a lot, but, you know, people would struggle and put it into the budget either monthly or come up at tax time to get that little tax deferral. So you get a little tax refund. And that was great. But if your adult children don't have a lot of money, but they could put anything between $0 and $6,000, then you as a parent would want to guide them to put it into the tax-free, because they'll have a bigger bang for the buck later on. Because even if they wanted to buy a house or a condo or something at some point in the future, and they needed this money, this is great, because when they take it out, if they don't want to pay themselves back, they don't have to. But if they use their money from the registered retirement savings plan, and right now the government is only allowing you $35,000, but you must pay that back starting 2 years later, and you have to pay it back over 15 years. Otherwise, it becomes taxable back to you at your higher income, because we're going to assume that over the years, you get jobs that are going to give you raises. You're going to be earning a lot more. The accumulation room carry forward is indefinitely. Again, there's no age. You can be 120 and still contributing to your tax-free savings. And if you didn't have the money and all of a sudden you got an inheritance or won the lottery later in life, you can fill it back up to where it's supposed to be. But with the Rrsp, the maximum annual contributions, it's based on the lesser of 18% of earned income in the prior year. So right now that would be $27,830 or less is going to be your contribution room. So you can see that there's a lot of room. But if you have a lot of room, that also means you're making the bigger bucks. But that doesn't mean that in your budget, you can afford to put all that money away. And then if you have a pension at work, it's going to be deducted from that figure. So as I said, if you want to take out money from a tax-free savings, you will never, ever, ever have to pay taxes on that money you take out. Where if you take out $1 from your registered savings plan or registered income fund, every dollar is taxable as if it was regular income. In your tax-free, it gets to grow tax-free for the rest of your life. Well, in the Rrsp, it grows tax deferred until age 71. Now you can convert to an income fund at any age. There is no age restriction, but the government will make you do it by the end of the year that you turn 71 if you have not converted it to an income fund, because our government wants the money that they didn't get over the years. They allowed you to defer it, but now they want some of that money back. And so they're saying, when you turn 71, convert it to an income fund, because we want you to start taking money out of that plan, whether you need it or not, so we can get some money off taxes. And you know what, at that point, a lot of seniors are actually making enough income to live, because they're not doing the same things that they were doing when they were raising kids and had a mortgage, and they don't need as much money. But the government says, we've given you time. Now it's our turn to collect some of that tax dollars that you got to defer. And for some seniors, it may mean that they get clawed back in their old age security. And I have to tell you, there is not one senior that won't complain when the government starts tapping and touching that money that they feel entitled to, just because they saved money compared to people that didn't save. So what can you invest in? The great thing, and people don't always understand this, is you can invest your money in absolutely anything that was in a regular investment account. So it could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, exchange traded funds. A lot of times people hear the word tax-free savings account and they think it can only be interest-bearing investments such as a bank savings account or a GIC. But you can invest in such a wide range. And that's why I was saying, depending on your comfort level, you could have well over $100,000 in your plan already. And if you needed that for any reason, comes out tax-free. Now, it's the same with an RSP. You've got the same type of range of investments. But remember, every dollar coming out is now taxable at your current marginal tax rate. Now, in both cases, you cannot write off any losses. So if you take a speculative bet on your investment and you lose, you can't write it off. But in the tax-free savings, if that particular speculative investment, went up 1,000%, you're not paying taxes on it either. In your RSP, it's going to be deferred. And once you start drawing money down, it will become taxable. So the gains and income are not taxable in the tax-free savings ever. No matter what it makes, it's growing in a tax-free environment. But the RSP, every dollar is taxable when you redeem. And again, the government tells you when you must redeem. You can redeem anytime up to a point. And after that point, the government will say it's time. In a tax-free savings, redemptions do not affect any other government plans. So if you have old age, CPP, etc., other things that might bring you close to being clawed back if you had additional income, and you took a big chunk of money out of your tax-free, it's not taxable, and it's not going to be affecting the old age security or any other type of pension. When you take money out of your registered retirement savings plan or income fund, every dollar is going to be added as income, which means you could get clawed back on your old age security. Dan and I have a lot of clients that are over 71 and continuing to work. And they're working not because they need the money, because they enjoy working, and we're living longer, we're healthier, so we stay at work longer if it's something we like to do. Well, because of that, you have income, you've got old age, you've got CPP, you've got all kinds of other income, and all of a sudden now you have to take money out of the registered plan, and boop, some of these things might be clawed back. Even if you're younger, I had people take out money out of the registered savings plan when they were younger because they were in between jobs, and that's where they had to draw an income. But then it affected their EI. Not really fair when it's your money that you've saved. But remember, tax-free savings have only been around since 2009. And that's just the beginning of when we got to start accumulating. So people didn't have a lot of money and that as a fallback. But nowadays, it would be a great fallback if you needed to, and you didn't want to impact any other type of income that you have going on. So with the tax-free, you can transfer the proceeds upon death to a spouse's tax-free savings, even if they've maximized their own. And that's where I was mentioning successor holder. You can only do that between partners. So husband and wife, if you're a gay couple, that doesn't matter. Common law doesn't matter. That's between partners. You can transfer on death to the other partner. You can do that with a registered retirement savings and or income fund. That would go at that point in time. But the problem is that if you don't have a spouse, it will be taxed to the estate upon death, even though it's going to go to a beneficiary that you would have named. Where the tax-free savings will go to the beneficiary, and if they don't have room, it doesn't matter because it's still going to come out tax-free. It's still going to be not taxed to the estate. It's not going to go through probate. It just might not go directly to another person's plan. Say you had adult children, but you didn't have a partner, then it could still be named. And if your adult children didn't have the money, this might give them the opportunity to at least max out up to the point that they can, and the rest of it still comes out tax-free. That can be used. So as long as on your RSP or a registered retirement income fund, it's still going to bypass probate, but it is taxable. And that's what you have to know. So which plan is best for you? The best solution, if you can, is to maximize both. But maximizing both depends on what timing. Because if you're at the early stages of your career, you should let your RSP contribution room accumulate. Because don't forget, it is growing, it is accumulating. You don't use it, you don't lose it. So that means that when you're making the really big bucks and you need to defer, I'll say, a bigger piece of your taxes, then you've got more money that you can add at that point in time. But the next best option for you is to sit down with an advisor and find out at what point you should be doing your RSPs versus the tax-free savings, especially if you can't do both. But sometimes if you're making really big dollars and you're in a high tax bracket, sometimes it may be advisable to defer some of your taxes, get a refund, and use the refund to actually open up your tax-free or make a contribution. But until you talk to your advisor, it's hard to say. You can't follow the crowd on everything because sometimes you will get burnt. Everything is individual. So the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. This is what Walt Disney said. This is why when he had his vision, he stopped talking about it and he went to work on making it happen. Why don't you start and make it happen? Take action today. This is our team. Myself, my partner, Dan, our client relations manager, and our manager of social media. We're here to help you make the right decisions. And if you have questions, you go to our calendar, make sure that you book something, a time. It's always free to even have a conversation. This is our disclaimer. Of course, we give our opinions. We do not give advice on legal and or accounting, but we will have a lot of experience that we want to share with you to make sure that you get what you want from the plan that you choose, making the smart decision at the right time for you. And until next time, we'll be having another master class Monday, and we'll be talking about something else you need to know. So try to be there. We'll see you soon. And if you like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We'll see you soon.